I turned this old IKEA cabinet into a stylish cat box. It doesn't have to be fancy to get the job done. But if you want to spruce it up a little bit like I did, adding some trim to the opening can really make it look nice. This is how it came out in the end. A little bit of trim can really make a difference. Remember to always secure tall cabinets like this to the wall so that they don't fall over and cause a big mess or worse. You don't want anyone getting squished by this thing, that's for sure. Alright, let me show you how I made these trim pieces. For the trim piece, I cut this off of an old cabinet. But you can buy a trim piece from the hardware store. This trim piece is MDF, but a pine trim piece will work just fine too. You can even make some trim pieces from an old 2x4. I started out by marking the trim pieces. The inside cut will be the same size as the opening. If you measure and mark all the opening sizes, your trim pieces should all line up. I'm using a table saw to cut the groove in the trim. This way it will cover up the opening. You don't have to use a table saw. You could make your trim out of two pieces that butt up against each other. But if you have a table saw, this will look a little nicer and it'll be a lot easier. For the first cut, you just want to cut the trim piece the width of the saw blade. If you cut too much off, you will not get a clean cut here. But it's no big deal. You can clean it up with a chisel or a razor knife. If you make a few cuts the width of the table saw blade, it will give you a nice lip for the trim. You can do this 2 or 3 times until you get the right depth. Now I'm going to use a miter saw to cut a 45-degree angle in the trim pieces. If you don't like cutting 45-degree angles because they never line up right, that's okay, because we can use some caulking to clean up the gaps in the joints. So that takes a lot of pressure off of this job. It doesn't have to be perfect, we can just eyeball it and be close enough. Once you get one piece of trim dialed in, you can use it to get the measurements for the other pieces. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, you just want it to be close. That's starting to look pretty good. If you get the top and the bottom pieces the same size, that will really make the trim line up nice. You can hold these pieces together to mark them. If you are off a little, you can take a bit more off with the miter saw. That's starting to look pretty good. The same goes for the side. The trick is to get things as close as possible. But remember, for this job it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be cleaning it up when we're done. Once you get all the trim cut up, you can put it all together. It looks like it fits together pretty good. Now it's time to get out the wood glue. To get ready for the wood glue, you want to have a piece of scrap wood or cardboard to set the glue bottle on. You don't want to spill any glue on the cabinet. The glue can be cleaned up with water, so get some damp paper towels or some rags ready for the cleanup. You want to put some wood glue on the inside of the trim pieces. And you want to put some wood glue on the inside corners of each trim piece. That looks pretty good. Now let's start gluing this thing together. Alright, just glue the pieces down. Put it all together and push the pieces together. If you have some gaps in the corner, you can put a little more wood glue in there. Just like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now you just need to clean up the mess with some damp paper towels. Let it dry, and then we can fill any gaps with some caulking. Any type of caulking will work. I like to use the white caulking that is typically used for windows and doors. These reusable tubes are great for small jobs like this. I put some painter's tape around the outside of the trim. This will make for easy cleanup. After you spread out the sealant, you can smooth it out with a wet finger. Having a damp paper towel handy will really help. It's also important to clean the stuff off your finger when you're done. Now you can just pull the tape up just like that. Now you got a nice clean line of sealant all along the edges. It looks pretty good. Now we can get started on cleaning up the corners of the trim. We can just put the sealant in each corner here and then rub it in like this and it'll look pretty nice. And then when you're done, you can clean it up with some damp paper towels. That looks pretty good. You can take your time here and just kind of clean it up real nice, wipe everything off with a wet paper towel. You can see how much nicer it looks with a little trim around the opening. This wasn't even a very nice piece of trim. So yeah, you can really spruce up your cat box with a little bit of molding. Alright, well I guess we should take this thing inside and see if our cat will even use it. Come on, kitty, 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 kitty. Come on, you can get not through there. Getting our cat to go through the door was a little more challenging than we thought it would Okay, now that we know this thing will work, it's time to carry it upstairs.
Alright, can I take the rest of the day off?
Whenever you put a big cabinet like this against the wall, you should always attach it to the studs. You don't want this thing to fall down and make a mess, or worse, you don't want it falling on somebody. I also put some wood slats behind the cabinet too. This should help it to clear the baseboard and line up flat against the wall. I put a couple of screws in the brackets above the cabinet too. You can use a stud finder here to find the studs, so you make sure you're attaching this straight to the studs for extra support. If you just screw it into the drywall, it's just going to come loose and it's not going to do any good. I also notched out a slot for the power outlet. That way I could plug in the motorized cat box. I put some brackets into the cabinets to attach to the wood braces that I nailed into the back of the cabinet. You can see here that I used some metal angle brackets. These things work pretty good for this kind of stuff. Then I put the shelves back in. This thing is really starting to come together now. There's a lot of room for storage in here. I also adjusted the big shelf to go over the cat box. I wanted to give our cat enough room to climb into the cat box and move around. The shelf is also great for storage. I can put some extra cat litter boxes in here. I'm 6'2" and this cabinet is as big as I am. We can store a lot of cat litter in here. So there it is. There's our fancy cat box. Our cat goes in this door right here. We put a little mat in the first cubby to dust all the cat litter off his paws. Then he crawls into the big cubby where we have the cat box. I plan on making some more trim for the inside doorway too. I will make some more progress videos on our cat box cabinet. I will post them in my cat videos playlist right here. I also like to post cute and funny cat videos in this playlist.